Help Desk YouTube video series. And today we're going to talk about splinting the intrinsic minus hand. That's right. Okay, so let's build from the beginning.
All right. Us?
Oh, I'm sorry, I do that all the time. Okay, I'm Big J.
I'm Little J.
And again, we're the OT Help Desk. All right, so we want to kind of build the scenario here. Okay, we hear a lot of times, you know, the idea that someone has a burn to the dorsum of the hand, okay, which creates an intrinsic minus position. Let's back up a second, because I wanna think about splinting, and I wanna kind of set the tone for how we should be thinking about this. Okay, so OTs will do 3 types of splint. Do you know what they are?
So you got your immobilization splint, and that's things like the resting hand splint will be an example of that. We got your mobilization splint, and examples of that would be like a dynamic extension splint, and then we've got our restrictive splint, and one of the most common ones that we use for that is like the ring splints for people with arthritis.
The ring splints, and you can also use elbow, you know, because they're hinge joints, you know,
right.
That kind of stuff. So wonderful. So we've got these 3 types of splinting. Now let's kind of create a foundation. All right. Here's what we know. These guys here, flexors. These guys here, extensors. Now we got flexors. We've got extensors. Any muscle that comes from back here that crosses the wrist, any muscle comes from back here that crosses the wrist is known as an extrinsic muscle, right?
Right.
So anything that crosses and comes back is an extrinsic muscle. Now anything from here down, okay, is an intrinsic muscle. Now, don't panic. There's only 4 groups in the hand. Let's do it this way. Number 1, lumbricals. Number 2, interossei. Number 3, thenars. And number 4, hyperthenars, the grippers. So those are the 4 areas, right? Now, we know extrinsics, we know intrinsics. Let's go back to splinting. Let's use this idea, this concept. Anytime that you have an extrinsic muscle that crosses the wrist and you're having an issue with that muscle, you're safe to suggest that you would use, a forearm-based splint. Forearm-based.
Right.
Now, any muscle that's having an issue in the hand, that's considered one of those 4 groups that I talked about, intrinsic muscle, we will make a hand-based splint. So forearm-based, hand-based. Forearm is extrinsic, hand-based is intrinsic.
Got it.
That's most of the time, that'll work. So it's a good thing just to ground yourself. Again, 3 types of splinting, immobilization, mobilization, restriction, extrinsic, intrinsic, extrinsic, forearm-based, intrinsic, hand-based. Now we got it, So let's play around with it a little bit. Let's talk about, a de Quervain veins. Now, in de Quervain veins, we know that we're dealing with the extensor pollicis brevis.
Yeah.
He loves that. That's my French version, brevis. And the abductor pollicis longus. All right.
Yep.
And they're in the
first extensor dorsal compartment.
You got it. First compartment.
The anatomic snuff box.
Yeah. Snuff box. Snuff box. That's where the cowboys used to put their snuff, and that's how they do it. All right, so snuff box. All right, so, and we know, that this, when I do this, and I do this, ow! Finkelstein. Stein? Stein? I don't know.
Potato.
All right, it begins with a Finkel and ends with some ein. All right, so here we go. So we know that if that is positive, meaning it hurts, okay, that you have a possibility of it being de Quervain veins, okay? So now we know those two tendons, what do? They cross the wrist.
Extrinsic.
Right. So therefore, okay, we're going to have a forearm-based splint. Now, in this case, it would be a forearm-based thumb spica splint. All right, that's how that would work. So now let's go to our dorsum of the hand.
Okay.
All right, because we hear many times of a person who has a burn to the dorsum of the hand, and we know what's here in the dorsum of the hand. There's not much there. What are they?
We got the extensor digitorum.
The extensor digitorum. Where does the extensor digitorum come from?
Extrinsic.
Right there. That's where the digitorum comes from. So the digitorum is going to do this, right? It's going to lift the hand up, all right? And now the extensor digitorum has two brothers, ulnar lumbricals, and two sisters, okay? They are the median lumbricals, all right? So that's 4 lumbricals right there. And they're the guys that do this, all right? And remember, digitorum does this, lumbricals do this. Well, lumbricals got to do this in order for the digitorum to do this. So what happens is the extensor digitorum is trying to do this because there's nothing wrong with that muscle, okay? But the lumbricals, okay, are attached to these tendons. So what's going to happen is the lumbricals are going to try to do this, and the extrinsic digitorum is going to try to do this, and there's an imbalance, and guess what you get? Ow. Ow. Wrist inflection, okay? MP joints are hyperextend. You can't hyperextend.
I can't.
Hyperextension,
This is far
okay? And then across here, look at my PIP joints. Ow, they're white, okay? Well, that's where the digitorum is. And if it continues this way, what's gonna happen is the tendons are gonna split, and up the bone goes, and what you get? A boutonniere deformity, yes, a boutonniere. Isn't a boutonniere a flower that guys wear like to dances and stuff?
Yeah.
All right, good. Boutonniere. I'm not sure how that correlates. All right, but we got a boutonniere deformity. We don't want a boutonniere deformity, do we? No, we don't. We can't have a boutonniere deformity. Okay, get rid of this. Okay, and what's that position called, Joseph?
Intrinsic plus.
That's an intrinsic plus position. Okay, so logically speaking, we have to go to an intrinsic plus position. I'm gonna show you something you don't know.
Right.
Okay, sometimes I know something he doesn't know. Most of the time he knows it. Okay, I'm gonna take this, okay, and what's that referred to as?
The writing position.
That's right. Sometimes our docs won't ask for an intrinsic plus. They'll say, give me a writing position, okay? And that's a writing position. Now, okay, we understand this. We've got the intrinsic plus, right? Okay, so let's talk, and that's for a burn, and we know it's an intrinsic plus. Let's talk about a resting hand splint. Resting hand splint, you say? Yes. How many types of resting hand splints are there?
So there are 3 types that you can use.
3.
3.
Okay. What are they?
So we got the anti-flaccidity, the anti-spasticity, and the anti-deformity.
Ah, so we just got done talking about the intrinsic minus and positioning, okay? Would we use any of those 3 splints?
So for the anti-flaccidity and anti-spasticity stage, you're going to use something more like this, which is more along the lines of the traditional resting hand splint. And I can show it here if you want me to.
It's better.
So in this one here, you can see that my wrist is an extension.
30 degrees.
Got it.
Okay. MP joints are going to be anywhere from 40 to 60 degrees.
Flexion.
And the PIPs will also be flexed to 20 degrees. Okay. And the DIPs 10 to 15 degrees.
Got it. And you might hear that referred to as slight flexion. And again, you're going to use this in when the upper extremity is flaccid, and then when they're in that stage, the anti-spasticity stage, where you're trying to prevent the spasticity when they might be developing some of that increased tone. Now, when they get to the point of where they have the hypertonia, when they have the spasticity.
Watch this. So what's this look like, people? Yeah, looks like a CVA, doesn't it? All right, well, what do we got? What type of position?
Yep. So we got to bring them out to a reflex inhibiting position here. So the elbow extended.
And then you need to put this on. Get me in there, Joseph. There we go. And we now have, perfect. We now have an intrinsic plus position.
And the goal of this splint here is going to be to prevent the development of contractures. And this is going to be this is going to be our intrinsic plus position here. You might hear it referred to as the safe position splint, the anti-deformity splint, and the intrinsic plus position splint. And you can use that in the anti-deformity stage after a CVA.
And we can also use this would be the same position that we used for the burn.
Exactly.
The dorsal burn.
Exactly, and so you see it's the same way. The wrist is an extension, the MCP joints are in flexion, and then the IP joints are actually, versus the other one that we just showed you where they were in slight flexion, here the IP joints are going to be completely extended.
And you know what's going to happen? The fingers aren't going to be able to pull up and out of the splint, okay? Because, put this on, Joseph.
All right.
Because if he has a intrinsic minus going on, what'll happen is if these digits are flexed already, they're just going to do this. Leave your fingers go up. They're just going to pull right out of a resting hand splint. So we can't do that. So we kind of got that broken down, and I you know, the idea would be now is think about, we've talked about intrinsic minus. Remember, intrinsic minus. Now, we have an intrinsic plus splint, which we just got done talking about. We've broken down our resting hand splints, the types, and we know that for that anti-deformity, it's going to be, okay, a intrinsic plus splint.
Right.
Now let's talk about, okay, a ulnar median nerve injury, but we're gonna call it a low injury. So it'll be in the hand.
Okay.
So what splint are you going to be using?
So if you have the ulnar nerve damage and the median nerve damage with a low injury, you're going to see similar to the intrinsic minus position that we showed before. Because think about what's happening here. The median nerve innervates the lumbricals for these two digits, and then the ulnar nerve innervates the lumbricals for these two digits. And so what happens—
Remember lumbricals, they do this.
That's right. They cause us to flex our MCP joints. And if we have the lack of innervation of the lumbricals for our digits here, you know, they're not going to be able to flex at the MCP joints. So you're going to see the intrinsic minus position and the IP joints.
And remember, those four muscles, the two ulnar, the two median, they're connected to the extensor digitorum, which comes back here. So the digitorum is going to do this. The digitorum does this. Yeah, but they can't, the lumbricals can't extend. So you get this. That's the position that you get. Okay?
Exactly, yeah. And so I guess that in terms of splinting, that was
all right, Smarty.
Right?
What kind of splint are you gonna make for that one?
So I guess we could probably use the same one that we used.
No, you can't use that. You can't use that. Why? Use your head. I mean, use your head. Okay? You can't use that. Why? Because it's—
Oh, it's low level. So
it's low level.
So
it's in the hand.
The wrist is not going to be involved, so
right.
we don't want to immobilize it.
So we're going to make a hand-based
splint that places them in an intrinsic plus position, but only for the digits.
And that splint is called a figure 8 splint.
Got it.
And that splint will create an intrinsic plus.
A rooftop.
A rooftop. And what it does is this splint actually comes around here, goes up around the back of the hand, and what it does is it allows you to use your fingers, okay, without the hand going into the intrinsic minus. Ow. All right.
You're saying ow.
I know. So think about it now. We've talked about intrinsic minus, right? And let's summarize, because we've talked about intrinsic minus in a number of injuries. We have it in the dorsum burn of the hand, okay? We have it when an individual suffers from a CVA and is beginning to get contractures, okay? We have it, okay, when someone has a ulnar and median nerve injury in the hand, okay? We end up with intrinsic minus. So intrinsic minus is pretty important to know.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Oh, yeah.
You really need to know that one and understand, how to splint it effectively.
Yeah, I agree.
So, moral of the story: know your intrinsic minus. Understand that you're going to build a rooftop. Understand that it turns to an intrinsic plus for a splinting. Go back, start all the way at the top. Okay. We've got 3 types of splints: mobilization, immobilization, and restriction. We know that we got extrinsics and we got intrinsics, okay? We know that when it's an extrinsic, that we're probably making a forearm-based splint, and then when it's intrinsics, that we're probably making a hand-based splint. We then went to the intrinsic minus and evolved down and explained why the extensor digitorum, being an extrinsic, works together with the lumbricals, okay? And there's an imbalance which creates a boutonniere deformity if you let it go. So to fix that, we make an intrinsic plus splint, okay? Where the MP joints are flexed to 50 to 70 degrees. The PIP joints are extended, okay, to 0 degrees, and DIP 0 degrees. And the wrist is put in dorsiflexion, okay, at 30 to 40 degrees.
Otherwise known as extension.
Otherwise known as extension. So summary, of what we probably need to know. That's an important concept, okay, for understanding the hand and splinting. So we're happy, okay, that we got a chance to share this time with you. I want to remind you about the OT help desk. Okay, you want to talk about that, Joseph? Because I always do. Why don't you do it?
Sure. So the OT help desk will basically expand on what you learned today. It's got video lessons where Dr. Connolly will go through different topics. He'll read through the questions and then talk about the rationales. Lots of different topics there.
There's thousands.
Exactly. So check us out at othelpdesk.com. Make sure you like and subscribe to this video too.
Hey, what about the liaison program? Should we mention that one more time?
Yeah,
just talk about
we might as well, yeah. So we have an OT Help Desk student liaison program where if you are currently an OT student at your school, or even recently graduated, there's an opportunity for you to get a free Gold Guarantee membership to the OT Help Desk. So if you want to learn more about that and more about how you can get that free membership, just contact us and we'll be happy to...
We'll take you through the process. All right, it's a pleasure being here with you and look forward to seeing you. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll see everybody later.